Today on Hitch20.
Did you ever have the feeling that you were being watched?
What happens when a director makes his presence known to the audience?
People were hungry to see him as much as his movies.
In The Perfect Crime, Hitchcock walks through the set and takes over the story.
He's sort of like a carnival barker.
How Hitchcock's storytelling brand can inspire today's filmmakers to connect with their audiences.
It's a little weird.
Much has been said about the 52 feature films that Hitchcock directed, but nobody talks about the 20 television episodes he also directed. The Hitch20. There is a unique phenomenon that happens while you're watching a Hitchcock film. You actually feel his presence behind the scenes, manipulating everything on the screen. The master storyteller at work.
He was different and unique because he was a celebrity director, not just a guy who was behind the camera.
On one hand, he's sort of like a carnival barker, telling us this way to the Hall of Horrors.
People were hungry to see him as much as his movies.
But on the other hand, he's got this Edwardian British style to him, as class. So it's this delicious mix of highbrow and lowbrow that makes Hitchcock so fascinating.
This omnipresence isn't there by accident. Early in his career, Hitchcock was well aware of his public image and took an active role in shaping it. He even founded a publicity company to get his name in the papers. As early as 1927, he had already drawn up the famous silhouette, the now recognizable pouting lips, big cheeks, and pulled back hair. Before getting into filmmaking, as a teenager he worked in marketing at Henley Cable Company, giving him the mindset he needed to create his own brand. His famous cameos were a direct extension of this branding symbol that helped to perpetuate his persona in the mind of the public. Most importantly, the cameos got critics talking. They began writing about the star director, often getting more attention than the actors. To further fuel the fire, he intentionally planted stories about his weight. Anything to get people talking about his brand. By 1938, he was the most recognizable director in the industry. He was referred to as Alfred the Great, England's greatest director, one of the greatest directors in motion pictures. And what about all those famous interviews you see where he's explaining the secrets of suspense? This was by design as well, to perpetuate his image as a sort of mad scientist genius or cinematic magician. In the 1930s, he began holding lectures on the art of suspense. Even the title Master of Suspense was most likely his own creation. All a clever media strategy. Today, his persona is so intimately weaved into his films that we can't help but feel his presence.
Now, if you will look through the keyhole with your other eye...
But it was his stand-ups on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, in more than 200 episodes, that solidified his image in the cultural consciousness.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Dr. Watson, wherever you are.
Alfred Hitchcock opening up with that bubble pipe. It's a little weird.
It added a little bit of a chuckle before the episode and a little bit of a chuckle at the end.
To me, they're almost the best part of the episode, to get that little bit of time with the master himself.
But Hitchcock always added a little bit of humor. He was a humorous guy. He liked humor, and his jokes were generally pretty bad. But I think that's what made his intros and his outros kind of entertaining.
No, this isn't it. I don't know why I keep it. I don't think it's any good anymore. It's been used. I am the main course. It would be horrible to go through this and be nothing but an hors d'oeuvre. I suppose you're as surprised as I was to see a money tree like this. The ones I've seen have always been much taller. Oh, I smudged that one. The ink wasn't dry yet.
I think you need a really healthy sense of humor to be able to write suspense and horror and to be able to direct it as well.
While introducing each episode, he made jokes about the relationship between the TV set and the viewer, a reflexivity and self-awareness that created intimacy. People got used to seeing him every Sunday night at 9:30.
I am prepared to repair your set. It only stands to reason. More can be accomplished working from the inside out than from the outside in. Let's see. Perhaps I should tighten this a bit. On second thought, it looked very good the way it was.
When he's not on the screen, Hitchcock's camera takes over and becomes the ambassador between storyteller and viewer. As you can see in this introduction to The Perfect Crime, his camera movements have a presence and a personality. Even though he wasn't actually operating the camera himself, there's a clear sense that he was behind each move. As Charles walks away from the camera and answers the door, Hitchcock chooses to stay with this shot, giving us a sense that we're actually in the room and we're listening in on their conversation.
The ship was late docking, and I just saw the newspapers.
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
I'm John Gregory.
Oh, yes, of course. Do come in.
Thank you.
My man is off this evening.
And then the characters pace back and forth, and the camera follows them, as if we're sitting in the center of the room. When the murder takes place, the camera is eerily close and even pushes in, almost like the camera is reaching out to help.
I really love the empty space on the shelf when Vincent Price is showing all the different trophies that he has from the different crimes. It really builds up a lot of tension and it makes you wonder, what is the perfect crime going to be?
I knew, because of my understanding of history, because of my understanding of how the censors worked in the 50s and 60s at that point, that era in time, the late 50s actually, that there was no way, Vincent Price, no matter how cool he was, there's no way he was going to get away with murder.
Vincent Price. Wow. First of all, talk about star power.
The guy is as cool as you can get. He can play evil, he can play good, and he has this rhythm, this cadence of his voice, the accent he has, that is so much gravitas. You just have to sit and listen to him deliver his lines.
Murder never seems to evoke the best efforts of the best minds. That's some good dialogue.
And sure enough, who comes in to right the wrong? Alfred Hitchcock at the very end.
The Perfect Crime is especially notable because Hitchcock walks through the set at the end of the show and reveals the plot twist himself. Without this, the episode could have been quite benign.
Could a modern director do this with an episode of a show? I'm not sure you could pull it off. I don't think Quentin Tarantino could come at the end of The Hateful Eight and say, oh, guess what? None of this matters because this is how it ends. He could. He very well could. Maybe Christopher Nolan could do it. Maybe Uwe Boll would be Uwe Boll could probably pull it off.
Did you ever have the feeling that you were being watched? Observe closely. No eyelid. He never sleeps. Obviously an ideal audience. Unfortunately, he doesn't watch television. That's true. He isn't watching me. He's watching you to see if you're watching me. Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, good evening. We wanted to take you behind the scenes for a moment to show you how we make our films. The friendly cooperation of many, many people is needed to bring you these stories. Prop men, makeup men, electricians, cameramen, all part of a team. I'm very proud of them, and they in turn... I sometimes consider getting out of this business.
Those who implement Hitchcock's techniques in their films might want to break the fourth wall and give the audience a wink. It's a way of strengthening the bond between director and viewer. Without it, your film might be missing something.
come here, stand in your place, otherwise it will not come out right, as the girl said to the soldier. That's enough.